Hi everyone, my name is Andrea and I'm with the integration support team at McGraw-Hill, and today we are going to go over how to use your error log. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of the webinar to ask them, and my co-host Warren will get to your questions during the presentation. There will also be time to go over questions at a few points during the webinar. We have seen a little issue with Zoom where sometimes questions don't show up, and if that is the case, we will get back to you afterwards because we can download them after the presentation. And you can also upvote others' questions that you see. That way we can address the most common questions live with everyone. All right, so this is today's agenda. The beginning of this presentation pertains to both OneRoster and BUIP customers. We will stop for questions after common errors. That's that number 4 there on that agenda, to allow for anyone who is not a BUIP customer to drop off if desired. And then the remaining section will only pertain to BUIP customers. We will also be recording this webinar and posting it to our website at a later date. All right, so let's get into it. We display errors in Access Manager or on the output files so that you can better troubleshoot issues. Our support teams use these errors to troubleshoot issues, but many of them can be resolved at the district level. It's usually within your SIS, your Student Information System, data uploads, sometimes in the BUIP or OneRoster files themselves. So this presentation is really intended to make you aware of some common errors that you might see, what causes them, and then how they can be resolved efficiently. All right, so if you use any of our auto rostering services, you have access to Access Manager, and you might also hear it referred to by our team as AM or McGraw-Hill Access. They're all the same thing. And I will go ahead and show you. You can either log in directly at access.mheducation.com if you have a login for that, or if you have one of our McGraw-Hill administrator accounts. Once you log in, you will see Access Manager here in the left menu if you are a district administrator. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to bring us, it pops you into a new tab with Access Manager. And today we're really going to be focusing on the Alerts tab. This is kind of where the errors lie. All right, so on this Alerts tab, you're going to see 2 or 3 headings. You will only see a heading if you have errors of that type. So the 3 headings are data import, object processing errors, and Connect Ed licensing. If we switch back over, you can see we have all 3 headings here. That means we have errors under each one. So first, let's talk about the data import tab. These are the errors with the import that could cause issues with data, and they include the file type, how many instances there are of the error, and the severity. And I'll go ahead and show you one of those. So here you see the actual error field must be unique, the field that is causing the error, and then the file type you would have it on, and the severity. You can also see instances. That'll show you how many instances of this you have in your data. Object processing errors are usually issues that will fully block a user from access, and they do often require contacting us at integration support. These can be cascading errors, such as the no organization found error, which would cascade to all users within that organization, causing any users affiliated to that org and any sections affiliated to the users to also have errors. So the main thing there is you definitely want to fix the org error first, and that should then fix all the cascading errors. And let's take a look at an example. I think we do have an org error in here. Yep, organization not found. So that is going to cause issues for any people and sections affiliated to that organization. All right, and the last one is Connected Licensing tab. And this is going to show you issues with licensing. This can include users that don't belong to an account or content expiration date issues. That's probably our most common one. And if we click over here, you will see, oh, we don't have any issues right now, but we would see them here if we did. All right, so you might have seen these in there, but each one of the alerts tab will also display a warning message at the top if there are errors of this type. In some cases, you can download the error report or the log file. So let me show you that. So this one, you can download the log file even though there aren't any issues. Data import tab, this is where it's going to show you, you can download the error report. Also, under object processing errors, it's just that message that says you will need to contact us. So let's go ahead and click this download the error report, and we can use this in a moment. All right, so the alerts do fall into different levels of severity. The yellow triangle indicates an issue with an optional field, and this will be ignored. So your data still processes, it's just letting you know that you do have an issue. The red triangle is going to indicate an issue with an required field, and that is going to prevent the entire row from being processed. So you definitely want to fix those errors that have that yellow triangle. And then the circle with the X in it indicates an import error for the entire batch or file. So big issue, definitely want to get that fixed. Nothing's going to process. And I'll go ahead and switch back. Let's take a look at some of these. You can see we've got some severities here. We've got some red and a yellow one that's less important there. All right, so those error reports and log files that we downloaded, each one is going to have slightly different headings. The error report, excuse me, has the headings of source, row ID, error column value, and error text. And then the log files have error text, error column, and value. So just so you know, the value is probably the key field here. That's the field that's causing the issue, and then the error text is another big one because that is actually what the error is. And let's see, I can pull up the error report that I downloaded from Access Manager, and you can see here we've got those headings and then all of our errors listed out. All right, so now let's talk about some common errors, and these are errors that you would find in the Alerts tab, in your error reports, and in log files. The missing required file. This is a big issue. If a required file is missing, the whole upload will fail. This will be indicated by a message on the Data Import tab that says there was an error processing your data, your files could not be read. So just keep in mind that files must be compressed into a .zip file, and if you're doing a web upload manually in Access Manager, the file must be named roster.zip. The only exception to this is for our BUIP customers. Those files can be named either roster.zip or BUIP.zip. And I'll go ahead and show you. We do also show the status of your uploads on the upload history page, which is really convenient. So if we click on upload here, you'll see this is where you do the manual upload if you're manually uploading. And then on the upload history page, you can see the status, whether it completed or if it failed. You can kind of check and see when it was created and how long it took. All right, file is not a valid CSV file, may contain invalid or missing quotes or extra columns without headers. This is pretty common and usually happens when formatting in the CSV file gets messed up. It is important to leave all column headers when importing the data. And you may also want to use a file editing program such as Notepad++ or Text Wrangler or BBEdit if you're on a Mac, instead of Excel if you're directly modifying the files. And that's because sometimes Excel can cause some formatting issues, can remove leading zeros and things like that. API syncs and files that are exported directly from an SIS or an SSO provider typically follow the one roster global standards. Again, the exception would be BUIP. All right, so your import has been stopped due to an unusually large amount of change compared to the previous import. This is actually a safety feature meant to block someone from importing an incorrect or blank file with the wrong data. That can cause a lot of issues. So in some cases, a high number of changes were made on purpose. And if that is the case, we do have a way that you can override this. And I'll show you that here in a minute. But just keep in mind, this is a stopgap that was put in here on purpose to make sure you don't make any changes that you don't want. And if you were to do that, it would look like this when it failed. This is what your upload page would look like. And then you would see on the alerts tab the override message. So first you'd see that error, your import has been stopped, and then you see in that yellow box there that message, the data in your current upload is significantly different. You can continue uploading or you can cancel. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. I've got a little zoomed in version of that there. This is what appears, and you can click on continue uploading if you're meaning to make all these changes. A lot of times this happens at the beginning of the school year or during a semester break. Or you can click cancel if you do not want to proceed, and then you go fix your data and try again. All right, so those were the file errors, and now we're going to get more into the granular column errors. These can still cause issues, but they won't cause a complete file failure. The field now shows next to the alert on the data import tab so that you know which field is indicated without having to download the error report. And the errors now also show in order of severity, so you'll see which errors should be fixed first in case there are any cascading errors. So let's take a look at some of these errors. We've got missing required field. It means that required fields are missing, and not every field on the files is required. Like for example, grade level on the user's file isn't required, identifier on the org's file. So you don't have to fill out every field, but you will see this message if a required field is missing. And also field must be unique, pretty straightforward. It means a field that must be unique is duplicated somewhere in your data. So for that, you would want to go back in and check your data and make sure you don't have new unique values duplicated. Invalid value for format type. The wrong type of value was used, such as a number instead of date. And then unsupported value means it's that you've entered a value that we don't support for either our one roster or BUIP process. And I'll show you some examples here. The role field has to contain teacher, student, parent, guardian, relative, aide, or administrator. If it doesn't contain one of those, you would get this error. And another example would be if you misspelled a supported value, for example, unactive instead of inactive. All right, reference key not found. This is a pretty common error, and it can be easy to fix if there are any misspellings, unsupported characters, or incorrect or missing data in the files. This can cause cascading errors and can block users from access or content. So the example we have here in the slide, it says reference key not found for class sourced ID on the enrollments file. So to fix this, you would simply ensure that the correct class sourced ID is added to the enrollments file, and then you would want to make sure that class ID is also in the classes file. And then if we switch back over to Access Manager, we can see, let's switch back to the Alerts tab here, and we can see some more examples of that. We've got that reference key not found here, and reference key not found here. Definitely want to fix those. All right, and then we also have length violation and unsupported character formatting. These are pretty straightforward, and you just need to make sure you're following our instructions or the global standards for these. All right, so those were our most common data import errors, and now we're going to talk about the object processing errors. For many of these errors, you will need to contact us at integration support because often it is something occurring outside of the district in our global database that could be causing the issue, or we need to clean up incorrect data on our end. So that's why we say that a lot of times you do need to contact us. In the example that I've placed on this slide, it says user source ID has changed. This could be something that was unintentional, and if that's the case, you could go back in and change the source ID back to what it originally was. Or if you really are changing a person's source ID, that would be something you would have to call us to get overridden. We don't recommend that change, but it happens. All right, so now we will stop for some questions. I'm gonna take a look here. And I don't see any here. I'm gonna go ahead and keep going in case we do have BUIP users on the line here. Just so you are aware, this training is meant to help you troubleshoot and resolve issues on your own, but please don't hesitate to contact integration support with any questions specific to your district at integrationsupport@mheducation.com or by calling us at 855-315-6417. We are open between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern. The next part of our training is going to go over errors specific to only BUIP customers who upload only using one file to roster their data. So one roster customers, you will receive a survey about today's presentation. We would love to hear your feedback. If you do use one roster, you are welcome to stay on, but you may wish to drop at this point. All right, so let's move into the BUIP errors. If you use BUIP files, you will receive an output file with errors that differ from those you would see in the alerts tab, and we're going to talk about some of those common errors here. This header row column is invalid. This error occurs when the header row values have been changed or removed. Just like with one roster values, you will want to keep the original BUIP column headers. And if one does get changed or removed, you will need to change it back to the original. Also, do not delete any columns in your file, even if they aren't required and you aren't using them, simply leave them blank. All right, a value is required. This error occurs when a required field is missing. This can be associated with first and last names, email addresses, and passwords. The only exception for passwords would be if you are an SSO customer, then passwords are not required because you would use your SSO for the passwords. All right, insufficient seats for MasterCode. This error occurs if all the seats for the listed MasterCode have been assigned. And in these cases, you may need to work with your sales rep to purchase more licenses, or you may need to verify that content is correctly assigned by the file. So an example would be to check to see if content is assigned to the wrong users or the wrong classes. You'd want to make sure it's going to the right people. Email is already in use. This error occurs when a user account already exists with the same email address. This typically occurs when a teacher self-registers prior to the district implementing an SSO or an SSO and roster integration. And this can be fixed on your own by going into admin tools in your McGraw-Hill administrator account. So let's take a look at that. If we go back here, we can go to manage users here and then click on staff. And then here you can see your staff at the district level or at the school level. You can click edit staff and you can change the email so that it isn't using their school email. This way, it would free up the school email to actually be added to the correct account and sent in the BUIP file. Please keep in mind, though, this error can be easily prevented just by making teachers aware they should not self-register. Their accounts will be created by the auto rostering process, and if your district uses SSO, they simply log in through their SSO portal and will not need to manually create a McGraw-Hill account. All right, add students to class. The class blank does not exist. This error is typically a cascading error that occurs when the reference teacher row has an error. So we want to check that teacher row to make sure they don't have an error. It can also occur when the class name or class grade in the student row doesn't match the class name or class grade in the associated teacher row. So you just want to make sure all those details match up. And student teacher username is required. This is a very common error for BUIP files. It can sometimes mean that the actual field student's teacher username is blank on the file, or that the row for that specific teacher is missing. So again, check the teacher row, make sure they show up on the file. It could also be a typo or misspelling, but keep in mind this field is crucial to rostering students into their classes. And now I will stop for any final questions. It doesn't look like we have any here. I do hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and we'll check out some of our other webinars on Access Manager and on how to assign content in Access Manager. As a part of this webinar, I will be sending you all our most recent common errors document that lists out the errors we have gone over today and how to fix them. Keep in mind, you can always reach out to us at Integration Support with any questions specific to your district, and our contact info is up there, integrationsupport@mheducation.com. Or you can call us at 855-315-6417. We are open between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern. You will receive a survey about today's presentation after this ends, and we would love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much for joining today.